Tonight on 3 News, we're there as a torrent of volcanic debris flows down the flanks of Mount Ruapehu.
It's quite amazing the sheer force that this is coming down the mountain. We're standing on top of the Ruapehu Bridge and I can literally feel it shaking under my feet.
I'm in Tangawai, where the path of the Lahar is ripped through this riverbed, wiping out a camping ground. I'm in
Oakune, where the train's going nowhere as the Lahar causes chaos for travellers on the main trunk line and State Highway 1.
This is 3 News with Carolyn Robinson and Michelle Pickles.
Kia ora, good evening. Ruapehu's crater lake has burst and swept down the mountainside to Tangawai and out to sea, and it hissed and roared as it came. The noise was a frightening proof of the Lahar's potential destructive power as it raced down the Ruapehu River towards Tangawai and State Highway 1. The crater burst just before 11 this morning, triggering Lahar alarms and a torrent of brown volcanic sludge. The desert road and rail links were shut, and the best views of this show of power by nature were through the lenses of the 3 News helicopter teams. Authorities had been planning for this almost since the Tangawai disaster of '53, so this time there were no deaths. But what the Lahar did to the road bridge at Savages Crossing was ample testimony to the pent-up force that Ruapehu had released. The river waters swiftly overwhelmed the crossing, and the bridge became the site of a spectacular volcanic waterfall. Now, to look at these pictures, you might not think so, but in fact, everything was going nicely to plan, with the torrent making its way to Wanganui and the sea. Well, as those pictures showed, our camera teams were quickly in position, and so too were our presenters. Mike McRoberts is live at the Tangawai Bridge, and Hilary Barry is live with the dock team managing the Lahar response. Mike, we will start with you. You're at the scene of what was a disaster in 1953. What's it like now?
Well, Carolyn, anyone who knows this part of Tangawai and the memorial to that disaster in 1953 will appreciate that the landscape here has been changed dramatically. Now, the Lahar, when it came through here, swept over the top of that memorial. It also carved away at the riverbank behind me, and it's left a trail of mud and silt everywhere, and trees are still toppling into the river behind me. Now, our 3 News team was here to capture all that drama, and Scott Campbell has this report.
When we intercepted the Lahar, it was 2/3 of the way down Mount Ruapehu. From our helicopter, we could see that the Ruapehu River had been turned into a moving mass of mud and rocks. This is the world's most active Lahar path. Since 1953, more than 45 Lahars have taken this course. Today it was in full flight. The torrent of water with waves 3 to 4 metres had left the crater at the top and began to surge its way down Mount Ruapehu at midday. Trees that have been growing on the mountain since the last eruption in 1995 were ripped out by their roots, carried in a giant brown river of water.
The trees were getting bowled over and getting picked up like carrots getting pulled out of a garden and getting tossed down the river. It's quite amazing, yeah.
The force of the rushing water hit the Tangawai Bridge an hour or so later. This time there would be no disaster. The specially constructed bridge stood firm on its huge piles, the Lahar flowing safely past. The one casualty was close by, though, the Tangawai Memorial to the 151 people who died in the 1953 disaster when a Lahar swept away the rail bridge that couldn't escape the surging water. A toilet block in the car park was ripped from its foundations. Using a helicopter, we were able to stay in front of the Lahar and witness its destructive potential. It's quite amazing the sheer force that this is coming down the mountain. We're standing on top of the Ruapehu Bridge and I can literally feel it shaking under my feet. You can hear a rumble similar to a V8 car, only much, much more powerful. Police immediately closed State Highway 1 and State Highway 49 through National Park, stranding motorists for hours. While today's Lahar flow was eye-catching enough and raised the ghost of the disaster past, that's all in the end it did. The Lahar this time wasn't big enough to fully test the plan to cope with the full-scale event. Scott Campbell, 3 News.
Well, a lot of planning has gone into trying to ensure that the Lahar didn't kill anyone and did as little damage as possible. Hilary Barry is in Oakune, where a debriefing has just been held of the entire operation. And Hilary joins us now. Hilary.
Thanks, Mike. Well, I have just come out of a media briefing. This has followed a meeting between DOC officials and the Civil Defence Minister Rick Barker and the local MP Mark Burton. And everybody is absolutely delighted with the way the emergency plan sprung into action. Everything went so incredibly smoothly. But it certainly wasn't the same story for travellers today. It was just before 11 that they closed the desert road in expectation of the sudden deluge of mud. Officials explaining to motorists the safe way to go.
The situation at the moment is the Lahara, and the gates are closed over here.
At Oakune railway station, dozens of passengers were transferred to buses after a 3-hour wait.
And the staff have been marvellous.
We've decided to obviously bring the train as far as Oakune. We can't go on any further until we get confirmation that the bridge and everything is stable.
Well, I'm joined now by DOC scientist Dr. Harry Keys. Dr. Keys, you must be delighted with the way the emergency plan took place.
Yeah, it's fantastic. The alarm system worked a treat. It was a bit of a complex start with the heavy rain, but everything worked really well.
So how would you say this event took place?
Well, the seepage was already undermining the backside of the dam, and then probably the heavy rain coupled with that did the final destabilisation. It started to erode and went quicker and quicker and quicker, and then it was all on.
And I know this has been building for several months, a lot of your for years, of course, and so many of your staff have been on tenterhooks. The locals have been on tenterhooks as well. Will you get a day off now?
Yeah. We'll be having a big party. Our boss has promised us a big party, so we'll be holding him to that.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for your time, Dr. Harry Keys, and back to you, Carolyn.
Hilary and Mike, thank you both so very much. Well, I'm joined now in the studio by Conservation Minister Chris Carter. Minister, now, we've known this day would come, of course. Obviously, you're delighted with how it went. Tell me how you think everyone coped.
Everyone's coped very well, and most importantly, the safety systems that the government put in, particularly the electronic system and the integration with other agencies, has worked very well. The community's been kept safe, and what's more, our systems are in place when the next Lahar takes place on Ruapehu. That's good news.
OK, now, not to underestimate the force of Mother Nature, as we've seen from our pictures, there must have been the odd hiccup, perhaps some damage and destruction to put right from now?
Well, we've got the footbridge on the eastern side at the base of Ruapehu has been destroyed, but we anticipated that would happen. It's about $30,000 to repair it, and DOC will be onto that job pretty fast. So, minimal amount of damage, really. The systems all worked, the community's safe. I'm really pleased, and I know the Prime Minister is too.
OK, now, incredible volumes, as we can see in these pictures coming from this Lahar. You've spoken to DOC just a few minutes ago. What's the state of the crater now? Well,
visibility is still difficult in the crater, but it would seem that most of the material in the dam is gone and we're down to the hard rock. If that's the case, then we've flushed away almost everything we wanted to, and so bar another volcanic eruption, everything's safe.
Of course, the timing of this, you must have some relief that it's happened now.
Well, I've been living with this for 4.5 years as Conservation Minister, and my predecessor, Sandra Lee, was very anxious about the issue as well, so I'm delighted it's happened at last. It's sort of like a long pregnancy that's finally come to term. It's been a safe delivery, and the system's all set for the next birth.
Conservation Minister Chris Carter, thank you for your time. We appreciate it.